And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. We've revamped everything, and we're using different software now, so hopefully everything will be improved as a result, and we intend to continue on relatively uninterrupted by software BS. Let's first look at the sun here as we study stars, and we study the local one the most. Here's the 193 angstroms view. We see a diffuse coronal hole south of the equator. 0 sunspots, and really not a lot going on. Very low solar activity in all. Here's a 304 angstroms view. And let's look at some more data. Here's helioviewer.org. I'll just show you the magnetogram faded to the 171 angstroms latest image. Not a lot of field complexity happening there. Let's look at some more data, such as the GOES electron flux, which cratered a little bit. There was a sudden uptick in solar wind density there. And there are the relativistic electrons. Looks like they've flattened out a little bit too. Here's the GOES magnetometers. That's the 14 and the 15. And we did see a little magnetic perturbation there at the same time that we saw the solar wind kick up. We'll get to it in a minute. First, we're going to look at the Gong 2. The Gong 2 data is derived from about 50 ground-based Earth magnetometers, as well as one out here on stereo B and one over here on stereo A. And we appear to be solidly in the South Pole-oriented portion of the current sheet, where we should remain, barring some unforeseen change over the next several days. Let's move on to the real-time solar wind. And here's what I was talking about. We see this density spike right here, and we see some induced current at that time. Speed and density both kind of popped up at the same moment, perhaps a small coronal mass ejection. We do see some wild swings in the BT/BZ as well as shifts in the phi angle right here. And possibly a fleeting magnetic connection with that coronal hole. Anyway, the current phi angle is at 164. It could be establishing a connection with the coronal hole right now. Solar wind density very low. Not quite as low as it was yesterday, I think, at 5 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed around 300, so solar minimum conditions in effect, folks. Here's the data from ACE. And here's the geospace magnetosphere movies, and we see a fairly weak magnetosphere. No real surprise there. And there's that sudden density spike. It's actually a density and a velocity spike. And we do see some induced current in the poles. Coming next is the geospace magnetosphere ground magnetic perturbations. And there you have that. And there you see that current spike coming in at about, I don't know, 7:45, right around 8 o'clock. About 8 o'clock UT. And we see the obvious 2 north poles here, and possibly 2 south poles also. But certainly a south pole creeping into the southern Indian Ocean. Here's the ionosphere, courtesy Australian Bureau of Meteorology, and it is still showing some charge-up abnormalities in the South Pacific there, south-southeast of Hawaii. Not as extreme as it was about 2 weeks ago, but still signs of extreme ionospheric gradients there. KP is at 1, and that thing is giving me the finger. Check it out. And we're going to skip cosmic rays today. Watch yesterday's video if you want to see the cosmic ray breakdown, or perhaps monitor them yourselves, as we've left links. And let's do the earthquakes. No earthquakes of 6 magnitude or higher over the past 24. However, a series of 5s, including this one at nearly 100 kilometers in Indonesia. There's a location of that one. Also a swarm of earthquakes going up the center of Alaska there. And an article in Zero Hedge about the New Madrid, as well as the earthquakes we've been seeing on Mount Rainier. I covered it a couple days ago. There was a 3+ magnitude inside the mountain, directly underneath the volcanic caldera. Mount Rainier, considered one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world. Here's a deep quake at Dominica. Here's a deep quake at East Timor. That one at 188 kilometers. Here's a deep quake at Argentina. Would not be surprised to see a large quake in western South America. Here's a 3+ magnitude in Oklahoma. Here's a very deep quake in the ocean in this rift zone northeast of New Zealand. And here's a deep quake at Afghanistan. That one is at a 4.5 magnitude. If I could click it, it would be just great. There we go. Oh my gosh, I've clicked it. It's a success. The whole thing is a success. Here's a deep quake at Indonesia, 4.9 magnitude, and another deep quake at Afghanistan of a magnitude 5, probably causing some damage, as there are some, shall we say, non-modern buildings located in Afghanistan. Here are the pressure maps on windy.com. We'll let that advance as we do daily. Look at the high pressure over Asia, as well as a strong anticyclone over the Central Pacific. When you see a clockwise rotating air mass in the northern hemisphere or a counterclockwise one in the southern hemisphere, that is high pressure, an anticyclone. And those systems, let's just say, have significant impact on the weather. Let's talk about this article on Zero Hedge. Now, we covered the Rainier earthquake less than 24 hours after it happened. But this article about the New Madrid fault zone, as well as the, okay, it was the 3.6 magnitude quake. I stand corrected. And in any case, I don't know if you're aware, but back in the 1800s, the New Madrid zone kicked up. And it was quite a mess down there, let's just say. Parts of the Mississippi River flowed backwards and yada, yada, yada. Fortunately, very few people populated the region in those days, but if a quake happened today, the death and destruction would be unimaginable. One of the quakes in 1811, from Smithsonian.com, here's a quote: "The Midwest was sparsely populated and deaths were few, but 8-year-old Godfrey Lesueur saw the ground rolling in waves. Michael Brahm observed the river suddenly rise up like a great loaf of bread to the height of many feet. Sections of riverbed below the Mississippi rose so high that part of the river ran backwards. Thousands of fissures ripped open fields, and geysers burst, spewing sand, water, mud, and coal high into the air." Links to this Zero Hedge article below the video. Volcano rundown includes Sakurajima. I wonder if it's still producing green-colored plasma discharges. First on the list is Mount Aso, flight level 6,000. Sakurajima, flight level 9,000. Sanjiang-Api, flight level 8,000. Dakono, 7,000. Popocatépetl, possible emissions. Fuego, back on the list. Possible emissions seen in satellite. Revenador, exploding. Flight level 15,000. Sabancaya, exploding. Flight level 27,000. And Nevados de Chilean, exploding. 12,000 foot ash plume there. Please do not do a back handspring or attempt to do a back handspring over Nevados de Chilean. It could end badly. Let's talk about particulate matter. Now, the IPCC5 International Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC5 report, the latest one, does not properly figure in for cloud nucleation, the albedo effect that is caused by aerosols in the atmosphere. Well, guess what? They figured out a way to slip global warming into this article too. So the article is about how the role of particulate matter on warming is stronger than previously thought, right? Now, we see volcanoes emitting lots of particulate matter, and we saw at least 3, some people say 5, stratospheric volcanic injections throughout the year 2019. And it's only December 4th. Anyway, check this out. The emission of particulate matter in the atmosphere is expected to decrease, Haskamp says. This means that temperature will therefore rise faster because the cooling will partly disappear. From the various climate predictions, those based on pessimistic models that assume more global warming are more likely to be correct. So they figured out a in other words, because human pollution is decreasing in most areas, they're expecting that the cooling role of particulate, I don't even know what else to say. It's mankind is not changing the climate. That's all I have to say. Here are the location of planets in the solar system. And there's where they'll be in 1 week as another full moon arrives. And here's where stuff is above my head. We're looking at in-the-sky.org. And check it out, Mars just rose. If you've got a horizon and you're located maybe in the east coast of the US right now, go watch Mars rise over the ocean. Please leave a comment if you're located on the east coast. China is trying to disprove the Big Bang inadvertently. They don't know that they're trying to disprove the Big Bang, but they're doing it anyway. They've sent a radio telescope to the Lagrange point 2 on the far side of the moon. If you're wondering what Lagrange point 2 is, well, there's a great video here that'll sort of demonstrate it. It's an area where the satellite's going to just fly in an orbit on the far side of the moon, blocking radio emissions from the Earth, and disproving the Big Bang once again, as they'll find themselves unable to measure the cosmic microwave background monopole. And yeah, they're trying to find dark matter and dark energy and all kinds of things that aren't there. So, cheers to China. Well done. The Chang'e 4 mission. And we look forward to seeing the Big Bang disproven. Something Robotai's been working on. Let's talk about the cosmic microwave background real quick and recommend that you watch this video about the Haruni antenna. An antenna that is properly made to prevent interference from hitting the dish. Let's just play a quote to tease you and hope that you watch this 9-minute and 30-second video by sky scholar Dr. Pierre-Marie Robitaille.
I have previously examined the 4K reference loads on the Planck satellite. That analysis reveals that this instrument had fundamental flaws in design even before launch.
Anyway, when you've got a signal-to-noise ratio of 1.5 to 1, that's not a legit signal. And let's just move on. I wanted to talk about economics real quick, as we've been seeing some turmoil here. Check out Bitcoin, all the way down to $71.99. Looks like it found a little bit of support here right around 7,000. But check that out. Very low levels for Bitcoin. That's the 1-year chart. Let's look at, that's the Coinbase exchange, by the way. Let's also look at Ethereum. Also incredibly low. Perhaps a buying opportunity if you're a believer in crypto, which I am not. I only own a small proof of concept investment. And we see the exact same kind of support level system there on Ethereum. These charts do not look good for the health of crypto. However, there are a lot of people out there that swear by it. Let's just look at a couple more things here. We're going to look at the utterly overvalued S&P. If I can get this freaking website to go back to the previous page, perfect. Now the S&P 500 is ridiculously overvalued. I heard a guy on CNBC yesterday talking about how they've got more shorts than longs. There's the S&P, an index of the 500 largest market capitalization stocks in the US. If you're wondering what market capitalization is, it's shares outstanding multiplied by share price. Let's look at silver. I saw it was down at $16.99 a couple days ago. Really a similar chart to cryptocurrency here, as most investors retain their head in the sand mentality. Now, the good news is that the US dollar still appears to be the strongest currency as other countries look weaker. So there's a lot of money still trying to hide in the US dollar. I won't get in any more in depth than that. I will state that the bond yield, let's see, is it still inverted? There you go. There's the 10-year showing a larger yield than the 30-year. Bond yields are still inverted, folks. That means that a bond with a longer term is returning a smaller return, a smaller percentage, a smaller yield, that is, than a, let's see, 5-year, 2-year. Anyway, there's some economic news for you. And let's talk about my psychic powers. Now, yesterday we made 3 videos, and the third one was supposed to be about a whole bunch of articles. And if you notice, 2 of our 3 videos were demonetized. We haven't requested a manual review because Google pays us absolutely nothing, but check this out. Now, this is going to show up in the news again today as we laugh and laugh. Check out this quote. Now, YouTube updated and Google wanted a review, so I used up all 500 characters to say, Google's junkware is so pathetic, it cannot even get out of its own way. The entire company is a giant zombie jalopy of nonsense, propaganda, censorship, spying, electioneering, and countless other literal crimes. Google also misleads its shareholders, and parent company Alphabet should be audited and investigated by the SEC. Google cannot break the internet, but the internet can break Google. If I were on the board, I'd sell my stock, move my assets to Seychelles, and move myself out of the US. On that note, and I wasn't expecting it, I didn't hear all the internal talk. Were you aware that Sergey Brin and Larry Page have stepped down and left Sundar Pichai as the sole leader of Google? Now, he doesn't own a majority share of stocks. Look at Larry Page. He looks like a doofus. He still continues to hold, as of April, 26.1% of Alphabet's total voting power, and Brin retains 25.25%. So they'll just be still running they'll still be running the operation. If you want to read about what's going on internally at the world's largest provider of spyware, censorship, junkware, and servers, read this article from Reuters about Google. Wasn't expecting to see this. I wonder if Sergey and Larry have moved their assets to Seychelles and decided to move out of the US before the SEC comes knocking at their door for misleading their shareholders. Have you seen the changes we made at smAsho.org? We've got all our links here. You got the YouTube link, Twitter, Instagram, Minds, BitChute, also the patron links. So perhaps check that out. Forum is coming soon. Look for that to happen in the next week or so, as the operation is constantly growing. Please press like and subscribe on YouTube, and press that notification bell for the outside chance that you may actually get a notification when we put videos up. Let's go to value-added services like lightningmaps.org. We see some heavy lightning in the Western Mediterranean there. And let's go to Weather Underground to continue adding value. And thanks everybody who viewed the premiere. Looks like I'm going to get to see more snow today as eastern Pennsylvania is coated. And let's look at the water vapor map real quick. Pardon the guerrilla style I'm making this, but the pause feature has been acting kind of weird. Anyway, here's the US water vapor map. This will give you some idea of what's going on if the Doppler radar looks a little bit deceptive, which happens regularly. And let's look at this odd area here over western Ohio as we see a bunch of dry air connecting. And there's that convergence zone. You can see that dry air kind of snapping together there. And let's look at null school. There are the jet streams. Jet streams in the western world still extremely meridional. Here's a big intensification here, just south of Greenland. Very high wind speeds there in the upper atmosphere. Here's the eastern world jet streams. Please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/smAshomash and help to support the channel as we grow from ground level. Thanks to our patrons for being associate producers of the content, as well as the websites, etc., research projects, and everything else that we have going behind the scenes. We'll talk about it all eventually. If you don't like Patreon, you can also donate on PayPal, paypal.me/smAshomash. And by the way, the gold level is only $9.99 a month. We also have a $1 level. You get very limited benefits. And thanks to the Smash team for viewing the video. We are returning with absolutely zero bonus features as we are out. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. Remember to stare at the sun, attempt to understand the physics, and since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that atherosclerosis absent from your